I am a huge fucking dickhead in my business. I piss people off all the fucking time, bro. And that not only allows me to make more money, but that actually allows me to be less of a dickhead and actually help people even more. And probably the reason that you're not able to make money and get sales and make your first 2K or 10K per month online is probably a good deal down to the fact that you're not willing to be a dickhead. Let me tell you my story. So I'm currently sort of at kind of 10K to 20K per month cash collected. The reason I say 10 to 20K is because we're currently in a period of fucking massive growth. And previously I was sort of at 10K, but we're at like 20, 30K a month pace essentially. And I help self-improvement creators, maybe like you, to hit their first 2K per month. But when I was at like $0 per month myself, when I was like 14 years old, it was. I basically got a first mentor. It was like a low ticket thing. It was like $100 a month. It wasn't really a mentor. It was just like a course with some calls and shit like that. And that allowed me to go from 0 to 2K per month. And then from 2K per month, I had another mentor a good while later, which got me from 2K to 10K per month. And now I've currently got another mentor, which is basically, allowing me to scale to like 20 to 30K per month. But those first two mentors completely changed my life. Okay, I've never ever been burned by some shitty mentorship. I mean, I kind of have actually recently, but I got that refunded, but that's a side point. So these two mentors completely changed my life. And guess what? I have pissed them both off. I've completely burned those bridges. And I say that with happiness and excitement because it has allowed me to make so much more progress. And I'll give you the examples of both. So I'll tell you about the second mentor, the mentor that got me from 2K to 10K. I'll tell you about them first. And by the way, I'm not saying names or shit like that. I'm not calling anyone out because both these people are still very good at what they do. I'm gonna give you the reasons, and if you know who I am, then you might know who they are. But like, I'm not gonna sort of give out names publicly. So this second mentor, the one that got me from like 2K to 10K. So this mentorship program that I was in was really good, and they helped me a ton. However, once I was at 10K per month, they didn't really have the systems or anything like that in place to be able to teach me how I could get to 20 and 30K to the next level. And I was still in the program, and basically it was like the last month of my payment plan or something like that. It was like $1,700 a month. And I was at the point where it was like, I'm not going to explain the circumstances, but I kind of needed to like save some money, and I wasn't really getting an ROI on it. And it was like, I was going to pay $1,700 for like a month access to a course I'd already gone through like twice, and for like 4 calls, like group calls, which I didn't even go on. And so I just said to them like, hey, like, look, I'm like not going to pay for this last month because I'm not getting an ROI. You're not helping me with my current problems. You helped me with the previous problems, but you can't solve my current problems, so I'm going to decide to cancel. And then essentially they just, I was technically supposed to pay that last month because it was on like a payment plan and we agreed it was going to be like 4 months, but, I sort of skipped that last month. And, they helped me a ton, but I was willing to do that. Why was I willing to, burn that bridge, sacrifice that relationship? Well, I saw what they were teaching me wasn't what I needed to get to the next level. And so I no longer actually needed them. I saw my future was basically moving a good bit away from what I'd been through with them. And that $1,700 at the time, being able to like reinvest that into the business in other areas, was a significantly higher ROI. Now, you might be thinking, well, hang on, Sam, like surely the relationship with these people long term, with that mentorship, would long term produce you a higher return than just that $1,700 temporarily, because it's only $1,700 and that's just like a one-time thing. Well, yes, but the answer I have to that is like life isn't unlimited, and you don't want to like infinitely prioritize the long term. You want to have a sense of urgency, and so that $1,700 would allow me to get to the next level, hiring an editor or hiring other people and basically reinvesting in other areas to make more progress faster, which making progress faster now allows me to make progress faster in the long term. And so like, if life was unlimited, then yeah, sure, that point would stand. However, it doesn't, because life isn't unlimited and you need urgency. And if I want to achieve my goals in the time frame I want to achieve them, I need to basically move the speed and urgency, which is kind of why I did that. Now, how that's been since, well, I've really not lost anything from it. A few people who sort of know them don't like me anymore, which to them it's like, okay, I'm a bit of a dickhead to them. I don't particularly care. That's coming into my point I'm going to get later on about like not really caring and everything and prioritization. But that's the first story. Now the second story is a much more interesting story. Okay, it's got that example there of the second mentor. That's just like a basic one. The second one is a much more interesting and much more spicy and complex. So the first mentor which got me from like 0 to 2K per month, completely changed my life. I basically, I would not be where I am today without this, man. Okay, completely changed my life, and I'm still so grateful for him for that. However, the reason I've sort of burned this bridge with him, and burning this bridge only happened like much later on. It didn't happen at the time. This actually happened. Burning the bridge with him kind of actually happened after burning the bridge with the second mentor. So much more recent. But essentially with him, it's like we sort of became competitors in a way. I'm trying not to give like a ton of info and everything, but we kind of became competitors, and I saw basically his clients weren't getting results. His clients, you know, they were paying him, and then they were basically spending like ages and months and, you know, years of their life essentially trying to do what he was teaching them to do. And for some of them it would work, but for most of them it just simply wouldn't work. And then what would happen is that a load of his clients, or not a load, but some of his clients would then find me and come to me, and then we'd be able to get them results much faster. And then with that, they were basically like, hang on, like I just spent like loads of time following his model, which, you know, doesn't really work, or it worked very unreliably. And then I've come to you and now it's working. And so I was like, shit, hang on a minute. You know, I've got a lot of these clients now who used to follow him. This is my old mentor, and it's not really working for them. And they're just all wasting their time and wasting their life. And it's like, I'm like, hang on a minute. Like, I don't want to let these guys continue, you know, wasting all their time and, you know, following a model which doesn't work or works very unreliably. And so I'm not going to give you the details, but I essentially started sort of targeting, you know, with outreach and other things, the guys in basically, you know, I just sort of like burning the bridge by sort of taking his clients in a way. And again, I'm not going to give a ton of details on this or anything, because you probably know who I'm talking about here, if you know who I am and you've watched all my videos. But essentially, he wasn't very happy about it whatsoever. And to that, it's like, you know, that's unfortunate. However, and this is getting to my point, Ben, big point here. I am willing to prioritize my purpose and my mission of helping these guys, and, you know, basically, it's not just about me growing my business and getting clients and making money, because I've got enough money, bro. Like, if I want to, you know, go and travel and do cool shit, it's like, I can do that, you know. It's about having this mission. Like, me and a load of my clients, we're all gonna be moving in together in fucking Albania, bro, in a penthouse. These guys who are dropping out, making money online, and we're all gonna be moving in together, and that's gonna be fucking awesome. We're calling it like the Fast Lane House. My program's called like the $1,000 Fast Lane. And we're all gonna be moving in together. It's fucking sick, and it's like these guys, my clients, I see their lives changing, and it's like I just feel so passionate about that. And then I see the guys in this old mentors program who aren't, and it's like, well, shit, you know, it's like, I want to go and change their lives. I want to get them, you know, come into the Fast Lane House and everything, and get them fucking killing it, and get them progressing and actually living purpose, instead of just being, you know, stuck at home trying to make money online, actually being able to go out there and live a life. And like, and so it's like, I'm willing to burn the bridge with my old mentor who completely changed my life, if that then means it's what is necessary, not only for me to get myself to the next level, but also for me to help others and sort of progress my mission in that sense, if you get what I'm saying. It's not just like a whole, like, you know, crab in a bucket thing of like, I'm just trying to make more money and be selfish. That is a motivation, obviously, for me to make money. You always, you know, that's just capitalism at the end of the day, you know, taking your competitors' clients. It really is just capitalism, but it's that I am willing to do that, especially because it then means the guys who sort of migrate over to me are then going to get results. So there's sort of the two stories there of me being a big dick, and then there's, I guess, a few of them more, but they're sort of the big examples within my life. And so this comes to probably my like biggest point of this video, or at least the most actionable point of this video. And that's that you need to be willing to not only sacrifice like relationships with people, but also you need to be willing to sacrifice your beliefs and your values and your standards, if that's what's necessary to become who you want to become. Because succeeding in business is not about going out there and physically getting like the external goal. It's not about just like making money, because, you know, if we were to give you, like, let's say I gave you my business, you know, doing 20K per month and 20K per month cash collected, And with that, it's like, it's now your job to run it. It's like, yes, you've got a 20K per month business, but what's going to happen? Well, you're probably not going to be able to continue making that money with the business, okay? Because you haven't gone through what's necessary to build a business like that. And so for that reason, you're basically not worthy of it. And so what I'm sort of getting at here is like, you will get what you deserve, if that makes sense. And what you deserve is just based upon who you are. And so it's about becoming he who can, not about there and just like getting the thing, if that makes sense. And so coming to my point here, like the person that you're going to be when you achieve your goals is going to be a different person to who you are right now. And that person's going to have, different ideas and different knowledge and mindsets and beliefs and values and everything. And some of the beliefs and values and shit you have right now, you aren't going to have when you're successful. You basically need to be willing to make the sacrifices, okay? And one of the biggest sort of beliefs and values I see a lot of guys like you have, which holds them back, is they're not willing to be a dickhead. They're not willing to like piss people off and go out there and face, the whole social judgment and fear. So a classic example, which you've probably got over, is people who want to make content, but then they don't want to make, but then they don't because they're fucking scared of their family and friends and shit seeing it. That's a classic example, but you're probably way ahead of that. And so they need to be willing to sort of sacrifice that, if that makes sense. When my whole school found my channel and everything when I was like 14 and I got like socially outcast and basically lost all my friends in school, I was willing to make that sacrifice to become, the person I needed to become. And I think that's probably one of the biggest reasons I have succeeded. Is because I was sort of willing to cut off everybody from my old life. But, and then that helps me become the next new person that I need to become. And so with you, it's like when it comes time to like, oh shit, you've actually got to do something which might piss people off. You've got to be controversial. And this isn't just being like controversial in your videos or, shit like that. Like this is like, if you're to be doing outreach, like be willing to piss people off in the outreach. Be willing to be like bullish with it. And not just be like a little pussy that's, trying to please people. And it's like, you probably already know this and you're like, yeah, Sam, that makes sense. But like, actually kind of realize, like, are you actually physically taking action on this? Like, so for example, I had a guy who booked like a sales call with me through Outreach the other day. And after like booking in, he was like, all right, man, like I know the call says like 45 minutes on the booking link, but like you got 15 minutes to sell to me, 15 minutes to pitch to me. And so what do? I respond back, sending him the cancellation link and a little selfie video, basically saying, look, man, if you're giving us 15 minutes, then just please cancel the call so we can give it to somebody else because, like, I don't like your mindset and I don't want to work with you if you're like that. However, if you're willing to give us 45 minutes, then show up for the 45 minutes. And I just send him that, literally giving the cancellation link right there in the message. And it's like, I'm sure I probably pissed that guy off a lot because I didn't, conform to his, what do you call it? What's that word? His frame, his frame of like, I'm in control, I'm only giving you 15 minutes. I didn't conform to it. And I was like, no, bro, you're gonna fucking do this on our terms. And I bet I probably pissed him off. Same thing is like, when you just do outreach or you make a video which disagrees or something, like, you are going to piss people off, okay? And this might be the reason which, there's probably other reasons why you don't want to do outreach or sales calls or shit like that if you don't, because you need to piss people off. You're going to piss people off no matter what, but like, outreach and sales calls, sorry, just fucking crazy birth. With outreach and sales calls, you're like right there in the fucking trenches, like with the fucking other, enemy soldier, like right there in front of you. And it's like, you got to face the fucking piss off dickheadness like head on, and you're probably scared of that, and that's because you're not able to get over these beliefs and values that you've sort of got to be nice. Like, you need to like feel good about, not always, okay, because we're gonna get to the next point about polarity. But you need to be willing to piss people off, and you're probably on the side of the spectrum where you're not willing to do that enough. Now, coming back to what I was saying there about sort of polarity and everything, because this isn't just like a one-sided thing where you just want to piss people off as much as fucking possible, because obviously if you do that, you probably wouldn't end up making much money if you're just pissing everybody off no matter what. You need polarity here, okay? You need to be polarizing, and you're like, okay, already know polarizing, you got to be controversial in your videos, got that. No, it goes so much further than that. You don't understand it to the fullest. You just had the very basic understanding of polarity. Essentially, like, the way you polarize people and what the result of polarizing someone would be is that you're kind of like splitting it straight down the middle in a way, or sort of. It's like some people are gonna fucking love you and their lives are gonna be changed by you, and some people are gonna hate you and not sort of see you and understand you for that. And again, polarity is sort of on a spectrum, but in general, like you're probably not polarizing enough to people. And this is the thing, like the further you pull over the dickheadiness on one side of the spectrum, the further the people who love you will love you, if this makes sense. This is all sort of like how cults work and shit. In that, like, let's say you're doing outreach to people. Okay, you're doing like cold outreach. If you basically go at outreach with a sense that like you're not trying to piss people off at all, and you just do the normal, outreach thing where people like, will, they'll start a conversation with you and try and converse with you, and they sort of like try and slightly lead it into like booking a sales call with you or something like that. A lot of people try and do outreach in that way. Doing outreach like that, you're not really going to piss a lot of people off, but then you're also probably not going to get a ton of calls, but because you're not being very like bullish with it. You're not being like going to, going straight in. You're just trying to you're trying to not let the people see that you're actually doing outreach, and you're trying to like not annoy them with that. You're just trying to like, make friends with them and shit, and it's like you're not really going to get much people loving you, and you're not going to probably not get much calls booked, and you're probably also not going to piss many people off. And then because of that, you sort of stay where you are. There's no like variance in it, which then, and we're going to get into like variance and risk and Darwinianism and all this shit later. But it's like you don't cause much of that polarity, and so then you don't really get much. Now, on the other hand, if you went at it with a very bullish strategy and you literally told them, hey, bro, like, I'm trying to sell you something here. I really think I can help you. Are you interested? Then by doing that, and I'll tell you what will happen, because I do this all the time. I outreach like that. Some people will fucking hate you, man. Like, I'll get some responses being like, fuck off, do not send me a message again. Or like big long paragraphs about how like, outreach is scammy and I need to be running ads instead. And people will, give you all this weird shit. But then some people, okay, they'll be like, shit, man, like, I really love your honesty. Like, yes, get me on that fucking sales call with you. Okay, this outreach strategy, this gets me, okay, because it's so polarizing. They're just being like straight up, like bullish, brutal with them. And it pisses some people off and you get the longest paragraphs. Other people, okay, and this happens, this happens about 5% of the time. Okay, basically 5% of the calls you book happen this way. Okay, this is fucking mad. Because the outreach strategy we have, like we basically send them a sort of like, we're like, can we sell to you? Can we pitch to you? And then we were like, can we send our calendar link over? And what happens is, 95% of the time we send the calendar link over and they book in. 5% of the time, which by the way, 5% is very significant. That's like 1 in 20. Okay. They will go and find me, okay, on YouTube and then book a call with me through the link on my YouTube. Okay. There's like a link in the description of this video. It's everywhere. Which basically explains my like pay and results offer to help you if you're a self-improvement creator. Get your first 2K per month. And we're very, very highly successful with doing that, by the way. So that link is down there. I didn't even mean to CTA here, but I've ended up CTAing. No pressure if you're not interested, bro, but that link's down there. There's also a link to my free school community, which has got my entire course for free down there if you're interested in that. I just accidentally CTA'd you. But essentially what happens is 5% of the time, people will literally go and find me on YouTube and then book a call with me like that. Now, the interesting thing is here, okay, we do it, we do outreach through setters and also like alt accounts, okay? And so it's not like they see my name, Sam Walford, on the account I'm messaging from, and then they go and search for the name. No. They don't even like, I think I actually do mention my name once, like verbally, but it's not shown on the screen anywhere. And then people will fucking listen to my name, Sam Walford, search it up and then go and book a call with me like that to avoid waiting the half an hour it takes for us to go and like check the message and send them the calendar, or sometimes longer than half an hour. So if it's in the middle of the night then I guess, but people will go to that extent. And then they'll come on the call and they'll be like, man, just like, let me hear you out. Like, I want to fucking join. I want to fucking buy from you. Okay. And it's just fucking awesome, bro. And you got other people like pissed off at you. And I tell you, with this, because we've got like a 12% booking rate with this. We've got a 12% booking rate and probably also like a 20% piss off rate, but we don't really track that. It probably is about 1 in 5 people that get pissed off. And then, the other people just kind of ignore you. And then we'll sort of, just start, they're just not booking or some shit like that. But essentially, it works like way better being able to do this. Okay. Take the scenario of the first mentor, for example. Okay. Let's look at the scenario where if I hadn't have done that, I hadn't have burnt that bridge and I hadn't have sort of taken some of his clients, well then I would have less clients now. I would have made less money myself. And also these people I've taken, they wouldn't be getting the results they're now getting. Okay, they'd still be stuck trying to do his unreliable method. Okay. And the bridge would sort of still be there, but I wasn't really in contact with him anymore. And so it's like, What have I lost? Well, I guess a potential like old relationship. What have I gained? Well, I've helped so many more guys. I've changed their lives, and that will continue as well. And I've made more money. It's like actually being polarizing in that sense is actually quite beneficial, isn't it? And this is the thing, like, and this is coming on to my next point here, of like variance and Darwinianism and all this shit, bro. Okay, which I promise I'll you know, it'll make sense, like evolution and all this. But essentially, like, as an entrepreneur, you are going to, like I said, with the becoming the he who can thing, you are going to go through pain and you are going to go through hardship and you're going to go through anxiety. And that's essentially what separates you from the rest of the people. Because I want to introduce you to a bit of a spectrum here. And this spectrum is like, how much of an entrepreneur are you? Okay. And because it's not like, are you an entrepreneur or are you not an entrepreneur? It's like, how much of an entrepreneur are you? And this is sort of like the risk to reward spectrum, if that makes sense. Okay. So on this spectrum, on one far side of the spectrum, you've got the 9 to 5 jobs, okay? Where it's like super secure, you know, just average 9 to 5 job, super secure. You just put your hours in, you get your reward out. It's like very linear. You essentially just trade your time for money, okay? And that's how most people work. That's like really not entrepreneurial, okay? Then on the other side, it's like you got the entrepreneur who takes the fucking big balling risks, Elon Musk, you know, like the investors, the people who take huge risks. Some of them fail and die and, you know, fail, but the others, they really succeed and they get huge rewards. Now, it's a spectrum. It's not like, are you a worker or are you like a 9 to 5? Or are you a 9 to 5 worker or are you an entrepreneur? There's a spectrum to this, okay? And this is going to become very, very important because could potentially change your entire life decisions and future when I introduce you to this. But, okay, let's take, for example, then, somebody, you know, a fucking cleaner, you know, a janitor. Well, they'd be a 9 to 5 worker. Let's take Elon Musk while he's an entrepreneur. Okay, now let's take somebody else. Let's take a high-ticket sales close, like a sales rep. Well, they're not a 9 to 5 worker because they're paid on commission. They're also not an entrepreneur because they don't own their own business. But where are they? Well, a closer, a high-ticket closer, a setter, or somebody like that, where they're like paid on commission, or somebody who's self-employed, for example, you know, like a plumber, or, you know, some people who like do the fucking, like, you know, put the windows in and everything like that. People like that, they'd be sort of more in the middle of the spectrum where they've got some risk, like a high ticket closer. Well, he only makes money if he succeeds. But because he succeeds then, and he takes that risk, he then makes more money. Okay. And this is the sort of the spectrum between risk and, you know, no risk. It's just the risk and reward spectrum in a way. Okay. And this is the thing, like, as you go more towards the entrepreneurial side of this spectrum, what then tends to happen is you will go through more risk, obviously, but you're also going to go through more, like, volatility, okay? Volatility is like, you know, basically things being unstable. So it's like you're going to go through fucking real down dark lows where you're not making anything, you're going broke, you got fuck tons of anxiety, it's horrible. You can't probably already understand this. Maybe you haven't had the full picture of it though. But then on the inverse flip side, it's like you're going to go through incredibly high highs, sort of how I'm going through right now, where you just get the fucking whoop straight up with your business. And that sort of is going to be very, very volatile. Whereas on the other side of the spectrum, obviously very stable. And in the middle of the spectrum, it's obviously a mix of both. A closer might have a good month and a bad month. But on the bad month, he might make 5K. And on the good month, he might make 10K. You know, whereas an entrepreneur on the bad month, he might lose 10K. And on the good month, he might, you know, make 40K or something like that. Whereas a 9 to 5 worker, he just makes the exact same every month. You see what I'm getting at with this? And so, essentially, okay, and this is going to relate in evolution and Darwinianism and all this shit, okay. The entrepreneur is more aligned to, and this is why I believed in punctuated equilibrium, which is a whole theory of evolution and everything. Basically, let me introduce you to this, because this will become relevant as well. I know it sounds like all my points are very like dispersed and like irrelevant to each other, but they'll all. I always do is I make like 10 different points, and then they all converge together to make one, like, you know, point that makes sense. Let me introduce you to punctuated equilibrium versus gradualism, and this is the argument, but with like evolution, where it's like, does evolution happen gradually, like evenly over time? Or does it happen very, very fast and then plateau, and then very, very fast and plateau? You understand that? So it's like with gradualism, it's like everything slowly evolves to adapt to its environment. Whereas with punctuated equilibrium, it's like you have a punctuation where it just goes just straight up like that, you know? Big explosion in like progress, so, you know, like in a business where you make a ton of progress. And then you sort of hit equilibrium where there's no evolution, it sort of balances out. Now, to sort of explain this, like the entrepreneur is more aligned to, and the business is more aligned to punctuated equilibrium, where it's just like boop, 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 like, like a staircase, which is punctuated equilibrium. And the 9 to 5 worker is more aligned to gradualism, and the sales rep is sort of in between. Hopefully you can sort of understand that and see that, okay? And that's for the reason that the thing that powers evolution, okay? The thing that powers, just evolution really and natural selection is essentially variance and risk and curiosity. And, those things might seem unrelated, but I'll explain to you what I mean. So in the evolution, what powers evolution, what causes it is mutations and differences between species and between, individuals in the species. Because if they were all the same, they'd all evolve at the same rate, or they'd all die at the same rate. Whereas because there's variance in it, the ones which survive better will survive more and produce more, and the ones that don't obviously don't. You probably know how that works. And so, with that in mind, the same thing happens with businesses, okay? And essentially what happens here is the businesses which do good do better, the businesses which it's a feedback loop. If you do good, you do better. If you do bad, you do worse. And so for that's sort of how natural selection works with businesses. That's why basically, businesses, it's like the 80-20 distribution. If you look at a graph of like all the businesses graphed, you'd have like a really long tail where there's loads of tiny businesses, and then a really big spike where it's like a ton of like, a very, very small amount of really big businesses. And that's basically due to this feedback loop of success creates more sex. Oh, sorry, not sex. Success creates more success. And so I guess success could create more sex if you really wanted that. And then failure creates more failure. And so with that's sort of why you get that distribution in a way, and that's sort of, this is why with the entrepreneurs and the businesses, they've got more risk, okay, and way more like variance in that way, and so that's why you get much more of like a like sort of separation like that, and that's also kind of why punctuated equilibrium, where it's like the staircase progress, where it's like plateau and then loads of progress, plateau, loads of progress. I'm kind of going through one of the loads of progress spikes right now, but then for all of like April, May, June, even like February and March, I was sort of plateaued, and now I've just got a big spike, And the reason that essentially happens, and what sort of causes that, and why punctuated equilibrium is aligned to this, and why it happens in business is I'm not actually going to explain why punctuated equilibrium happens, but you understand the fact that it's like basically business and entrepreneurial shit is more aligned to evolution and more aligned to very fast, growth when you hit a sort of breakthrough. You kind of understand that, don't you? Whereas a 9 to 5 worker, on the other hand, there's not much like variance, if that makes sense. Like there's not much risk. There's not much like different shit. Like you can't, like with a 9 to 5 job, you can't go and try something out different and just like spike your income just like that. It's a much more like gradual increase. You see what I'm saying? And so that's kind of sort of how it is. Now, with the spectrum, okay, obviously the entrepreneurs are very high risk, high rewards, and the 9 to 5 workers are low risk, low reward. Now remember, it is a spectrum, okay? So with the entrepreneurs, like I said, they're going to go through very, very high highs and very, very low lows. And the 9 to 5 workers are just going to be sort of stable. Every day is the same. That sort of, what was that song in Fight Club at the end? I can't remember what it was. But you know what I mean? It's like every day is the same, and it sort of all blurs into one. Whereas the entrepreneur is like you get real high highs and real low lows. Now, you probably want to be an entrepreneur. But the question I'm going to give you is, how much of an entrepreneur do you want to be? Okay. Because I can tell you about my sales rep, Evan. He takes most of my like sales calls and shit, and he also does like a load of delivery as well regarding the whole sales stuff. Okay, now with him, because I've got to know him well, and we both know for him, like he is much happier working as a sales rep, where he can just put the work in and put the hours in taking the sales calls, and obviously it depends on his performance, and then he obviously gets paid well for that, and obviously there's more risk because it's like, if I want to do it, I could just fire him like that, there's no contracts or safety shit. It also depends on if he's good at closing, if he's got good energy, so there is some risk. However, he's going to get paid pretty stably, okay? And so he's happy like that. And then he looks at what I have to go through, where it's like, last month I actually lost money with my business because I reinvested so much of it. and I'm getting like fucking bad anxiety that I'm gonna go broke, and because I'm reinvesting so much and that the shit's not gonna work, and I'm getting anxiety because I'm like burning these bridges with people, which is another thing I'm gonna get to about being a dickhead. This is all gonna come full circle. Like being a dickhead, then causes the anxiety, which then sort of causes more risk and everything. And it's like he knows he doesn't really want to be there. So I'm gonna ask you, like, how much of an entrepreneur are you willing to be? Okay, because with this, it's essentially like, to be a good entrepreneur, you need to be willing to have sort of variance and give up your beliefs and be a dickhead. And then that's going to cause you anxiety and pain and fear while also getting you the high highs. And so, like, genuinely honest question, I'm not expecting you to say a lot entrepreneur, but like, how much of an entrepreneur do you want to be? Because the reason you're not making much money now is probably because you're not willing to be a dickhead, okay? You're not willing to make these risks, piss people off, cause this like variance in your business and change shit. And because when you change shit, that is a risk, isn't it? And so that's sort of why, it powers evolution and everything. And so how much of an entrepreneur do you want to be? Do you just want to be a high ticket closer or a sales rep? Or a setter, or even someone like an operations manager or someone like that within a business, where it's like you sort of work a job within a business where you're not like the head entrepreneur, owner, founder, and you're more like a sort of, an operations manager. It's basically like a manager in a business in a way. You can imagine it as that. Would you prefer to be someone like that, where it's like, actually, like, I don't have to constantly be taking this risk to try and build something great, because I can tell you, like, it requires a lot of fucking grind and a lot of sacrifice to make entrepreneurial shit work. But it's really, it's not the only way to make money. You can make a lot of money being a sales rep and other shit like that. Like, if you just want to make like, 50K per month and go and live on the beach or some shit like that, like, you can do that being a sales rep, really. I mean, not really a sales rep because you shut off your grind on calls, but like, you can do that being like a manager or someone like that. And like sort of have a much more stable life, or do you have like this real fucking big mission that you want to change the world with? Because if so, then you probably should be an entrepreneur. But if you don't really have that, then it might be worth you just being like a setter or someone that you can just like send a load of messages every day and then, make like 5K per month doing that. Like my setter Lauritz, like he's basically going to be doing that when we get him like running our outreach system, because I'm just sort of running it myself at the moment to test it and everything. But he's going to be happy doing that, because then he's going to come to Albania with us and he's going to be making money just being able to send messages and all this shit. And it's like, he's going to be chill doing that. Instead of taking the risk of the business and 1 month making like $2,500 and the next making nothing. And it's like, he prefer the stability and everything. And so, like, where actually are you? Because this is the thing. Like I said, the reason you're not probably making much money is because you're not willing to be a dickhead. You're not willing to put yourself on the fucking front lines in the trenches where you're taking that risk, and you're taking that variance. Like, would you want to be the soldier on the front lines and take the fucking risk of dying, but then get the reward of serving your country? Or would you prefer just to be on the, the back lines and be a fucking engineer or something like that? Like, if you were to fight in a war, would you be the fucking soldier? You're the first one to go over the top and fucking straight line at the enemy. Or would you prefer to be the engineer in the back, fixing the planes? Because if you're wanting to be the guy who fucking goes over the top and just fucking straight lines it, then you'll probably want to be an entrepreneur. Whereas if you're happier being, an engineer who still helps and still like serves it, but just not as like the head and the peak, and it's like, because this is the other thing, like, there's not one good answer. It's not like better to be the soldier who goes over the top, because for the soldier to be able to be in the trenches and have his gun and, have the food and have the support, we need engineers and we need doctors and other people like that who aren't on the front lines. Like, no, you can't put the entire fucking country on the front lines. Like, we need support systems, okay? And most people aren't going to be actually the entrepreneurs. They'll try and they'll fail just because they're not. That's just not who they are. And so what I'm coming at here is like, being a dickhead and everything. Like, are you willing to be a dickhead? Are you willing to piss people off? Because like right now, I'll be honest, like, my biggest fear right now is just being seen as like a course seller. Like, that's not who I am. I'm not like some scammy fucking course seller or shit like that. But some people will watch these videos and see me as that. And that's like who I'm fucking against, bro. Like, I'm against that so hard. Like, I want to be the type of guy who's like, I made money online and didn't go to Dubai. I made money online and like, starting my mission of changing the world, eventually reforming the education system is what I want to do. And with that, I'm obviously make money and help people. But I'm not into materialism or any shit like that. I'm very much against all that. And it's like, I don't want to be seen like that. And that's my current fear of being seen like that. But I have to just deal with it and go harder on what I'm currently doing, because that's what's sort of necessary for me to progress to the next level, if you can see that. And that's just, how it is being an entrepreneur. It's a lot of risk. You need to be a fucking dickhead and everything, bro. And you sort of really need to push yourself through that. And if you're not willing to take that risk, then it might not be worth you being an entrepreneur. And this sort of links into my biggest life mission, what I want to achieve, which is like reforming the education system, because the education system right now, it really like negates a lot of this variance and risk. The education system does not raise entrepreneurs. The education system raises 9 to 5 workers, and the entrepreneurs, well, it's kind of in the entrepreneur's blood. They have to drop out and take the risk and essentially go alone and figure it out themselves, which is kind of how an entrepreneur should be. It should be learning. But what I believe is wrong with the education system is it really smothers that. And it really, I think, it really puts the pressure on the people who want to be entrepreneurs. And I think it really causes like an all or nothing thing going on with it, because it's like the people who succeed with business, for them, because right now with the way at least in the UK, the way the education system is, it's like it really teaches you that going alone and going on your path is like really not a good idea. They don't even like consider that or talk about it or recommend it at all. And it's like you'll be judged by the people for doing it and everything. And so there's a huge barrier to entry. And the thing with like barriers to entry is, and things being harder, the harder something is, the more reward there's going to be on it. Because the harder something is, the less people there's going to be it, and then there's the less people there's going to be on the other side of the barrier. Therefore, the bigger the success will be, if that makes sense. And so there's a very big barrier to entry for entrepreneurship right now with the education system. And so with that, it causes this all or nothing thing, because very few people will get through that barrier, but the ones who do, there's no competition on either side, and so they just go whoop straight up, And it's like you get loads of super successful people, and then like loads of unsuccessful people, and no one really in between. And that's sort of how it is right now, and I don't think that's like beneficial to, at least in the UK, like beneficial to our country or anything. Which I'm not gonna get into all of that, and I think this might just be a problem with the education system in the West as a whole. It teaches like the people who want to be entrepreneurs. It kind of, the education system teaches us that we kind of have to go against everything that we've been taught and go against everything if we want to succeed, and it makes it really fucking hard. And like I said, makes it so there's very very few entrepreneurs, but the only entrepreneurs are very very good because they've been filtered through that in that sense. I believe the filter right now is too strong, and I believe that we should promote entrepreneurship. And it's not just like promoting it, like I think we need a whole fucking overhaul of the education system, like really reforming it, and really not even reforming it, just like rebuilding it from the ground up. But that's a whole other thing I'm not going to get into. But essentially what I'm getting at here is like, if you want to be an entrepreneur, with the way it is right now, it's going to be ridiculously hard, especially, if you're in the UK. 'Cause I know America is like more capitalistic and shit. I guess like maybe other countries are, but at least I know my audience is like half British, because like YouTube always shows my videos to more British people than American people, because I'm British. But basically, like the way the education system is, the way the precedent of it is right now is it's really fucked, essentially. And so if you succeed with entrepreneurship, you're gonna succeed like crazy, bro. And if you don't succeed, you're just not gonna succeed. It's like binary. It's all or fuck. It's a 1 and you succeed, or it's a 0 and it's not like a 0.5. There's nothing like that in between. So essentially what I'm saying here is if you're not willing to be a dickhead and piss off everyone at your school and piss off everybody and all your family and everyone like this to take this risk and do this, it's really not going to work out. Because that's also another thing I really see, really interestingly enough, with my clients, mostly with clients who are like American, or generally more so, their parents are a lot more open to them like starting businesses and shit, because I know it's more of a normal thing in the US, and doing like an online business or something like that, becoming like a coach or someone. Whereas in the UK, it's like, at least looking at my clients and where their parents think, it's like, their parents are like, oh, okay, you can do that, but you need to make sure you get a normal job as well. It's like, there's no like, it's just, I don't think it's like a normal thing in our culture, which, at least not anymore, I think, because the education system's sort of done that. But anyway, I'm sort of going off tangents and shit here. If you are a self-improvement creator and you definitely want to be an entrepreneur, then I can make that happen for you, bro. However, you need to be willing to put in the work. There is a link in the description. I mentioned it earlier. My page there. There's a little video on that, which kind of explains my whole methodology to get you to 2K per month ASAP with your self-improvement content and self-improvement coaching. And there's also a link there to book a call with my team, potentially with Evan, potentially with me, about how all this stuff will eventually work if we were to help you pound results and everything. So that link is down there. Now, there's also another link, which will probably be the first link in the description, which is my free school community, the $1,000 protocol. It's got my entire course on how you can start self-improvement coaching and make your first 1K per month with it and everything. And I just give that all away for completely free. But absolutely no pressure if you don't want to sign up. There is like an email and phone number sign up for that, just to let you know. But yeah, other than that, man, I'd really appreciate if you could also click the subscribe button so that you can see more videos of mine and get more of this value on your YouTube feed, and maybe turn the notification bell on so you get the notifications about my videos, in case there's any that come up which you decide you want to watch. But yeah, other than that, I hope you have a really, really amazing day, bro. Thank you for watching, and see you on the next video.